Hello, I'm Stacy, your Disney hotel lady, and with me today is Casey. Thank you for being here, Casey.
Thanks for having me, Stacy. Congratulations on the new show.
Thank you very much. We're gonna learn all of this together, I guess. But you have a podcast you've been doing for a while, yes?
That is correct. So I'll be going into my fifth year, believe it or not. My partner, my podcast partner Matt and I, both former Disney Store cast members, decided back in 2019, hey, we should start a podcast. We kind of know what we're talking about when it comes to Disney and Marvel and Pixar and Star Wars. And in 2020, we made plans to do that. It actually happened to coincide with the day of lockdown, the very first day that Illinois went into lockdown for COVID. So that was the first day we recorded, which was hilarious. So we all kind of found ourselves with a little bit extra time on our hands. So starting a podcast made a lot of sense. And ever since then, yeah, we've got over, I think, 200 shows at this point, 4 years worth of material. You can find everything at sorcerernetwork.com there. And it's called the Beers and Ears podcast. We're on, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the places you would normally get your podcast. But yeah, I think what's really fun about us is we're not like a serialized podcast. You can kind of go, especially on our website on Sorcerer Network, you can kind of pick the category you want to look at and listen to any of our past shows.
Oh wow, yeah, that's cool. Well,
Yeah.
congratulations on that. That's a great achievement. 5 years and
Yeah.
some great
5 years in
stories.
March. So yeah, it's fun.
Starting
We
with
have a lot of fun
COVID.
with it. Yes.
Crazy.
Well, some people baked banana bread. We decided to start a podcast. What can you say?
Hey, whatever works for you, huh?
Yeah,
And you also work as a Disney travel agent, correct?
that is correct. So I am a travel agent with Main Street and More Travel. We are an authorized and earmarked agency. What that means is that we meet all of Disney's qualifications and certifications. We have to go through yearly training. You are talking to an expert when you talk to one of our agents. I'm one of basically 100 who are part of this agency. Started that back in 2022. Like I said, I was a cast member for years. I was a cast member at the Disney Store for 5 years. I was lead cast member of the year. I love Disney. I mean, at the end of the day, first trip I ever took was 2010. I'd never been before. My partner Nate took me, and I got bit by the Disney bug, as what happens with a lot of people, right? You get bit by the Disney bug, and but we made all those first time rookie mistakes. And I think as I've gone through my years, and I've been there over 2 dozen times, I've learned and I know how to help guide people. So, yeah. So as a travel agent, I specialize in all things Disney, Disney World, Disneyland, Disney Cruise, Adventures by Disney, Alani. I do Universal. I know that's the park that shall not be named, but we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And I also do sandals. I do all inclusives. So yeah, and one thing a lot of people don't realize is that when you book with a travel agent, it's free to you. There's no extra cost involved. People sometimes think there's more money. There are some agencies out there that charge, but we are a fee-free agency, and you're paying for a travel agent whether you use them or not. So I always say it's free to you. Why not just lean on my years of expertise, and I can help guide you and plan the perfect trip. I've helped well over 100 different guests and clients in the last 2.5 years.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. I think it's really important for people to know that, yeah, you don't pay extra for a travel agent and they can be a great resource, especially for those first time visitors that don't know all the ins and outs because it's kind of complicated to plan a Disney trip these days.
It absolutely is. Actually, it's funny. Before we even got on the call, I've got a series of automated emails that I send all of my clients once they book, and some of them are informative about your trip. Some of them are action needed emails. But there's 5 emails that I start sending in 120 days out, all the way up to your day of travel, that reference articles I've written, podcasts. There's podcast episodes that are important. There's also just resources that I've created that are exclusive to you as a client of mine, from why you should put Epcot in your trip, why you should go to Hollywood Studios, to is the Disney dining plan right for you, or should you get a Magic Band? Like little things you don't think about with a Walt Disney World trip. I kind of take you through that progression, and they come at various times via email. So yeah, like you said, a Disney trip is probably one of the most complicated trips you will take. Let me take some of that complication out for you. So that's why I'm glad I'm doing this show, because I can help take some of the mystery out of it for you.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, speaking of first timers, what kind of tips would you have for someone visiting Walt Disney World for the first time?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked this question, because I do get a lot of first time guests, or sometimes it's they've been to Disney, but it's been like since the 90s that they were at Disney when they were a kid or a teenager. Walt Disney World is a very different place than what it was in the 90s. Heck, it's a very different place than what it was 15 years ago the first time I went. So I have like what I like to call the 5 key things that I think every first timer should know. Now, the bonus one at the top is use a travel planner. We kind of covered that already, right? But really, the first one I'm going to say is what I like to call the money mistake. And this is like two sides of the same coin, which is you're spending a lot of money. Like, let's not sugarcoat this. Disney is a very expensive trip. We get
Oh,
that.
yeah.
But there's two types of clients that deal with this in two very different ways. Way number one is the client who thinks that they're going to do the trip of a lifetime and never go back. That's not going to happen.
Famous
Let
last
me
words.
Well, I think what happens is people sometimes think in their mind, oh, Disney, and they think of the Magic Kingdom. Yes, Magic Kingdom, one park. There are 4 theme parks, 2 water parks, a dining, entertainment, and shopping destination in Disney Springs, 2 miniature golf places, plus 40 different hotels and resorts, which is why we're on the show today, right? It's
Right.
40 square miles of fun. And it's not even all built up yet. Even if you spent 2 solid weeks there, you couldn't do it all, right? So for the people who think they're going to do the lifetime trip, oftentimes they want to try to cram it all in, and it's like, hey, I don't mind you taking a 2 week trip, or and they don't want to try to do it in 4 days, but realize you got to level set. So that's number one. You're going to be back. Like, even if you tell yourself you're not, you'll be back. The flip side of that, though, is the one who, in order to save money, in air quotes there, they want to limit their time to 2 or 3 days only. Now, the way I try to explain this is you already have sunken costs in this trip. For example, your airfare is a sunken cost. You are paying the same for airfare whether you go for 3 days or you go for 5 days. At the end of your 3 days or 2 days or whatever you decide to go, you will not gotten done everything that you've wanted done. And there will be a moment of FOMO, fear of missing out, like, oh my gosh, I wanted to do more. And guess what? Now you're planning your next trip back, and you got to do another sunken cost in air travel or another sunken cost in your hotel stay. Versus if you just do it when you're there for that one trip, add that extra day in, all you're really paying for is that extra day and one extra night at the hotel, right? So I think that's like the first big like piece of advice I give new people is, like, plan a 4-day trip. Like, I think an optimal, a solid Disney trip is a week-long trip. You arrive, especially next year, you get the free water parks, which are coming on board. Um, you do 2 days in the parks, you take a rest day, you do 2 more days in the park, and then you leave. I think that is a very solid trip. I get there's a price involved, but the price is going to be more if you got to come back in 2 years anyway to do the stuff that you couldn't do the first time around, right?
Yep.
So that's
Yep.
number one. The second one I will also add is also about money. Folks, Universal Studios is not Disney. Harry Potter Land is not at Walt Disney World. The soon to be Super Mario Nintendo Land is not at Walt Disney World. I get that you're in Orlando and you want to do Universal, but it's a completely different park, a completely different company. It's 35 minutes away from Walt Disney World. Again, this is a huge mistake people make. oh, I'm doing 4 days at Disney. I want to do a 1 day excursion over to Universal. Universal is banking on you doing that. And I did a little math for you real quick on this,
Oh,
Stacy.
okay.
So I did a trip, a fake trip in April of next year for a family of four, two adults, two kids, age 10. Okay. For if you have two adults, two kids, age 10, and you have a 4 day park hopper at Disney, taking a 1 day, I'm sorry, taking a 1 day park to park ticket to Universal. So a 1 day ticket that gets you to Universal Orlando and Islands Adventure, which you need to do both Harry Potter experiences right now.
Right.
That's $800 more for that 1 day. $800 more.
Wow.
A 2 day excursion, because if you really want to do Universal right, you really need at least 2 days for both those parks, is $1,600, right? That they're banking on you doing that. But if you added a fifth park hopper day at Disney, take a guess how much?
$70.
Well, per person, 320. It's $320. So $800 for a 1 day excursion versus $320 for adding a fifth park hopper day. You're saving $500. If you added a six park hopper day, so you do 6 days at Disney as opposed to 4 days and 2 days, it's only $509 more. $509 versus $1,600. You're saving $1,100 that way. Now, I'm
Wow.
not saying don't go to Universal. I love Universal. I think Universal's got a lot to offer. I know I shouldn't say that on a Disney pod. I get it. But do it as a separate trip. Do your Disney trip as a Disney trip. And then 2 years from now, do a Universal trip instead. Or next year, do a Universal trip instead, right? The third one I'll add is if it's your first time, you don't need to park hop. You don't need to park hop. Save the money. There's enough at Magic Kingdom that you can do. There's enough at Magic Kingdom that you can do that you could actually do 2 days at Magic Kingdom, frankly. You don't need to park hop. Hollywood Studios, same thing. Epcot, same thing. I think the only park that you probably only really need 1 day for is Animal Kingdom, unless you like animals. Then it's a whole different world. Park hopping, A, costs more money. And as my podcast partner Matt likes to say, time is money. Meaning, if you want to park hop at Walt Disney World, you got to leave the park, you got to go to the bus stop, you got to wait for the bus, you got to take the bus to the park, you got to get off the bus, you got to walk to the entrance, you got to get through security, you got to get through ticketing. That can take about an hour or sometimes more. Disney says 90 minutes to get from one place on property to another. 90 minutes out of a 13-hour park operations day, that's a lot of time. So unless you really think you need to park hop, you don't need to park hop. And the last two are kind of related. Disney's not just for kids. It is for adults. I have been over 24 times. I've only ever been to Disney once with kids. And number two, take a midday break. Take a midday break, whether you have kids or not. Get there in the morning. We're going to talk about some stuff here in a minute, but take a midday break. Get there in the morning, stay till 12 or 1, go back to your resort, take a nap, swim in the pool, chill, go do resort hop. Get out of the sun for that midday and then go back in the afternoon. I know you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, I want to be in the park the entire time. A Disney vacation is not just about the theme parks. And I promise you, if you have kids, there will be meltdowns if you don't do a midday break. If you don't have kids, there will be meltdowns if you don't do a midday break. That first trip Nate and I took, we were screaming at each other by day 3. We were screaming, like we had to walk away. It was just, ah. So those are my my top 5 tips for newbies. I know I went a little crazy there, but yeah, there it is.
No, I agree with everything. And yeah, people underestimate how much adults melt down as well
Oh
as
yeah,
the children. But yeah, I agree.
it's like that Adam Sandler scene from Big Daddy. Why are you screaming? Or enough? You know, it's like, okay. Anyway, yeah.
I am actually I need to make a Universal trip. I've only been to Universal in California. I haven't been in Florida yet. So
I would love to help you with that. And I know this is not a Universal episode, but Universal, they're going to give Disney a run for the money. Will they ever overtake Disney? No. Will they take a percentage of their market share? Yes. Even as it stands right now, before Epic Universe opens up, they've got a pretty good value proposition, and I can give you a lot of great tips. So I would love to help you with that, and any of your listeners too. So
okay, well, yeah, maybe we'll have to come back for a Universal episode because yeah, all that Epic Universe looks amazing, and The
right?
hotels, I've seen that new hotel, those pictures, that looks
Grand
just
Helios.
fantastic.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
absolutely does. And honestly, their existing premier hotel structure is fantastic. I send a lot of my clients to Lowe's Royal Pacific. Are you a Jurassic Park fan or Jurassic World fan at all?
Oh, yeah, love it.
So Lowe's Royal Pacific is modeled after kind of that uh, Pacific type jungle environment. In fact, they have Jurassic World suites, which is fantastic. So, and one of the benefits you get for staying at a premier hotel, Lowe's Royal Pacific, Portofino Bay, or Hard Rock on Universal property, is you get free Universal Unlimited Express passes. So basically, it's like getting the Premier Pass, Premier Lightning Lane at Disney, but you get it for free at Universal just for staying at the hotel.
That's a great value.
Absolutely. Anyway, back to Disney.
Back to Disney. So speaking of hotels, then let's go on to what, in your opinion, are the best on-site hotels at Disney World.
Yes. So it's hard to just pick one. So what I've done is I put them in the categories. Disney technically has 4 categories. They actually split their deluxe and deluxe villa is in suites into 2 separate categories. I keep them in one category, but and then I separate the value from what I call value plus. So I'll get to that in a minute. So let's just start with deluxe. All the deluxe resorts are fantastic, but I have a special place in my heart for 2 reasons. For Animal Kingdom Lodge on the south end of property. I love Animal Kingdom Lodge for 2 reasons. Number one, location. Even if you don't have an Animal Kingdom day, you can wake up looking at animals on the savannah. It is built right on the savannah. You can sit out on a rocking chair. Oh, you're like, I love it. Yeah, absolutely. Like you could sit out on a rocking chair and you can drink your morning coffee and watch the giraffes eat, or the wild birds, or the flamingos by the pool. It's an absolutely beautiful resort. The architecture is stunning, right? So Animal Kingdom Lodge location wise, but I think the second thing that's even more important to me is price. It is the lowest priced deluxe resort. Next closest would be Wilderness Lodge up by Magic Kingdom, but it's the lowest price one. Sometimes you can find pricing as low as like $450 a night, which with discounts and stuff, that's not bad for a deluxe resort for what you're getting. And again, the deluxe resorts, the architecture is beautiful. Again, no matter where you stay, the service is fantastic. But again, you can't beat that location. I just think it's absolutely stunning. So Animal Kingdom Lodge is my absolute go-to deluxe.
And they
We
have
go
one of
down
my
to,
favorite restaurants
yeah,
where you
which
can
one is it?
also watch the animals. The
Boma or Sanaa?
Sanaa. Sanaa, where
Okay,
you can watch the
red
animals there
service.
too. Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
yes. I'm a Boma guy. I love Boma, the buffet and the zebra
Yes.
domes, although I'm on this new medication, so I don't do sweets so much anymore, but the zebra domes are
Oh,
fantastic. So,
they are.
um, for moderate, I have 2. First of all, there's not a lot of moderate resorts, but I do have 2. Coronado Springs, center of property near Disney Springs, was recently refurbed and they added the Grand Destino Tower. I just was there with my mom in September and we stayed in the tower. And she said to me, she goes, Casey, I feel like a celebrity because of how fancy it is, right?
So cute.
For a moderate, it's fantastic, and the views at the top are amazing, especially when you get up to the penthouse area where the Toledo, the tapas restaurant is. You can see great views of Epcot, Hollywood Studios. Fantastic resort. The other one on there is Caribbean Beach Resort, Disney's Caribbean Beach. I send a lot of my moderate clients to Caribbean Beach. The big reason, and you're going to hear this talked about on my next pick as well, is if you have not been to Disney since 2019, you don't know what the Disney Skyliner is. The Disney Skyliner is a fantastic form of transportation that allows you to get to 2 of the theme parks without having to ride buses. Caribbean Beach is kind of like the hub for it all. So at Caribbean Beach, you can go over to Epcot, you can go over to Hollywood Studios, or if you wanted to resort hop, you could go over to Art of Animation or Pop Century. It's the hub. And by the way, the Riviera Resort is also next to Caribbean Beach. And because they're so close to each other, you also can kind of go and check out their food court too, which is kind of nice. Um,
Yeah.
the thing about moderate resorts too, I will add, they all have hot tubs versus the value resorts, which don't. So if that matters to you after a long day in the park,
It matters to
Now
me. Yeah.
Yeah. The other two, so we talk about value. I split them between value and value plus. Value plus, I've always included Pop Century and Art of Animation in this. Disney doesn't call this, but this is just kind of my way of thinking. First of all, the Skyliner absolutely makes them a value plus resort. But I put Art of Animation here. It is the most requested value resort I get. And that's because you have your standard Little Mermaid rooms and you have your suites. You have Cars. If you got a Cars fan, because Cars is so underrepresented on property, it's a fan. You get basically a replication of Radiator Springs. You got the Lion King suite, which is fantastic, and then you've also got the Finding Nemo suites, which are the preferred room suites. They're right there by the pool. You actually hear the seagulls go mine, 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 mine when you walk by them, which is fantastic, and it's by the food court. So Art of Animation, Value Plus. I just can't beat location again on the Skyliner route. Pop Century is over there too. It's a little bit less expensive, but it's just I think the theming for Art of Animation is just so over the top. And as far as value resorts, you only got three. You got all the All Stars. Of the All Stars, my favorite is All Star Movies. I like to think of it as Art of Animation light. They pretty much always cost the same. Uh, All Star Sports, I guess, and we're going to talk about this in terms of do's and don'ts in a little bit. All Star Sports, like if you're just looking for a place to lay your head at night, fine, go to All Star Sports. There's not a lot of theming there,
Yeah.
but movies, you got Fantasia, you got Toy Story, you got 101 Dalmatians, and I think Herbie the Lug Bug are the four areas. And they're truly Disney themed. So I definitely would say that's your cheapest option. I would go there.
All right. Yeah, I've never stayed. I've only stayed deluxe when I've gone to Disney World,
Okay.
but yeah,
I've
just
stayed at
the
all the
travel.
All Stars. Yeah, I've stayed at all the All Stars. I stayed at all the moderates except for Coronado Springs. No, I'm sorry, not, I have to say, except for Caribbean Beach. And then deluxe, I've stayed at Animal Kingdom. My bucket list is to stay at Grand Floridian at some point. I just ever since I saw Uncle Jesse singing to Aunt Becky in Full House, I've wanted to stay at Grand Floridian. So
Right? Yeah. Okay. Well, then what about off property? What's the main contrast? Is it price? What's the goods, the bads, the about on versus off property?
yeah, so that's a great question. First of all, nothing against my off-property partners. I mean, Marriott, Hilton. I've done your training, and you guys have great properties. I've stayed at the Hilton Orlando Resort right there by Disney Springs. When I've gone to Momentum, that's where we've held that. Right, great resort. It is, and there's a number of them that are considered other great accommodations. That's what Disney refers to them, sometimes called good neighbor hotels. Right. Um, Look, nothing wrong with them. But if you're picking one of those resorts because you think it's going to save you money, more times than not, it's not saving what you think it's going to. That's the best way I can say it. If you're staying off property, there's a couple of drawbacks. Number one, you don't have the complimentary transportation that you think you're going to have. Now, if you're within walking distance to, let's say, Disney Springs, okay, fine, you could go catch the bus. But I did that. I stayed for Momentum, our buddy Lou Mangello's retreat.
Yep.
I had to walk over to Disney Springs and then had to walk to the bus area. And the Disney Springs doesn't automatically run to the parks. So now you got to go to another resort and then catch another bus to get to the parks. By that point, just Uber it, or you're going to have to rent a car. Well, when you rent a car and you're off property, you are paying for parking versus if you're on property, you are not paying for parking. And when you're off property, you are paying for parking at the theme parks too. So you're getting double hit there. So any savings that you think you're going to get off property, you're tying up in your rental car, you're tying up in your parking fees, and you're potentially tying up in resort fees depending on where you stay too. There's also something to be said about the Disney bubble. For when I will say off-property good neighbor hotels, you do still get the early park admission that you would get if you were on property. But if you're not in a good neighbor hotel or another great accommodation, which is what they call them, you're not going to get that early park admission either. So there is something about being within the Disney bubble, being taken care of by Disney cast members at all time. Even their value resorts, you get that Disney service. Um, I know we're not talking Disneyland on this particular episode, but Disneyland's a great example. you've only got 3 on-property resorts at Disneyland, and everything else is off-property, and that's fantastic. They've got wonderful good neighbor hotels over there. But there is a difference between the service you get from a Disney cast member and the service you get, even if it's a Hilton or a Marriott. Yes, they're fantastic, but it lacks the magic. And I don't know if there's a way to quantify that, but it's definitely a qualitative trait there. And so I am the first to admit I am an on-property snob. I am an on-property snob, and I will try to direct you to an on-property resort first. I will still book you off property. Don't get me wrong. If at the end of the day, but if you're doing it because you think you're going to save money, more times than not, you're not. And you also can't do the dining plan when you're off property too. That's another important thing.
Yeah, I stayed at the Holiday Inn in Disney Springs area last time I was there, and that was for Momentum actually. And
Yeah.
you had to pay to take their bus to the
Yes. Or
so
even if it is free, if they do offer complimentary transportation, because Hilton, Orlando offers the complimentary transportation. The thing is though, you get it once in the morning. There's usually like one time midday and then at night. So if you're not planning to leave on their schedule or go on their schedule, you still got to make alternate arrangements.
yeah.
So I did Momentum twice. I did it in 2021 by myself. I stayed at the Hilton Orlando. And then I did it with my brother in 2022. And we were originally going to stay at the Hilton Orlando. And I said, no, I want to stay on property. So we stayed at All Star Sports. And even though I had to catch an Uber every morning to go to Momentum, I was on property. I could take complimentary transportation anywhere I want. I like at that point, it just made sense. So again, I'm an on property snob. There's a little bit of a premium there. I get that. But if you do it right, you do it with you do it with the right promotions, the right discounts. I think there's a lot of intrinsic value there that people overlook sometimes when you're not thinking about it.
Yeah, the Disney service for sure. That's why I've met so many people who are fans of Disney parks, but not necessarily Disney like movies or, cartoons, that kind of stuff. But they love the parks or the hotels because of the Disney service that's so
I
different from
give
service
all
elsewhere.
credit. I give all the credit in the world to the former vice president of Walt Disney Parks and Resorts, Lee Cockrell. Anybody who's been in the Disney bubble, Disney universe knows that name. He's the author of Creating Disney Magic. He was the guy who was in charge of the Disney parks back in the early 2000s and late 90s. He's the one who kind of, when you think Disney service, he's the guy who kind of put that out there. He was the one in charge of Walt Disney on 9/11 when 9/11 happened. Like he understood and kind of put these ideas into cast members' heads. Um, uh, Disney in some ways has gotten away from that in different ways, but I still don't think that there is anybody who matches Disney, even with some of the lower levels that I think us as Disney snobs have. We're Disney nerds, we have expectations, but you
Yeah.
go to a Disney park, you are going to be wowed. You go to a Disney resort, you're going to be wowed comparative to a Marriott or Hilton. Again, nothing against Marriott or Hilton. I love them. I will sell them. I do sell them. And people like them for their points. I get that.
Yeah. Oh
But
yeah.
there's something about Disney service that I just can't be beat.
Yeah, for sure. Totally agree. Okay. But sometimes you just can't afford the lovely Disney bubble and off property, or especially at Disneyland, like you mentioned, great off property hotels there, but it's different at Disney World. But you're probably doing it because you have a budget. So, what kind of tips would you give people who are trying to stick to their budget?
Yeah, I've got 5 here. These might be a little bit different than what I originally sent you that I was going to use. There's a couple that are still here. The first one is skip the meal plan. Um, Look, pre-COVID, I thought the meal plan was the bee's knees. You got, 3 quick service meals, or I'm sorry, 2 quick service meals and 2 snacks, or you got a table service and a quick service and 2 snacks. Now, since COVID and since they brought it back, they took away one of the snacks. So right off the bat, you're down about $7 in value. So for those of you who don't know what the meal plan is, quick service meal plan, you get 2 quick service meals. Think fast casual, fast food type food per night, 1 snack per night, per guest, and a refillable mug at the resorts that you can use for unlimited soda, coffee, tea. Unless you're big foodies, the value is not there, especially when you get to the Disney dining plan, which is the table service. You get one table service meal, which includes most character dining and signature experiences, one quick service, one snack, and that same refillable mug. Unless you're a giant foodie and you plan to max your appetite, or you plan to do a character meal every day you're there, you actually will spend more on the Disney dining plan than you will if you were to buy it out of pocket. And you're feeling forced to have to eat when maybe you don't have to eat, right? So skip the meal plan. That's number one. Number two, eat breakfast in your hotel room. All hotels have little miniature beverage coolers or fridges. The bigger ones have larger fridges, especially if you're in a suite. But even if you don't bring your own food in, like Pop Tarts or granola bars or whatever, eating at your resort food court, they got breakfast sandwiches, they got grab and goes, they've got bananas, they've got granola bars. Even grabbing one of those, or even a breakfast sandwich, you can get a breakfast sandwich with some hash browns for $10. Like, it's not the end of the world. It's not that expensive when you compare it to like maybe like a regular breakfast sandwich at a McDonald's. Same thing, a meal's going to cost you $7, so it's not that much more. The third one, which kind of goes along with this, if you have soda drinkers in your group, get the refillable mug without the meal plan. You can go right to your food court, buy the refillable mug. I want to say they run like $32 or something like that per mug. But for the entire duration of your stay, you get unlimited soda at your resort. Like, it's a no-brainer. Sodas are going to cost you $5 per soda every time you buy one. So if you plan to drink 6 of those per person, it pays for itself, and that includes coffee, tea, all that stuff. So get the refillable mug. It's also a nice souvenir you get to bring home with you too. I mean, it's kind of 2 in 1. Along that line, which is one I don't. What's that?
I've got a couple.
Yeah, I do too. I think I have one out there I'm using as a salt shaker now for the snow. The third one along that line, I didn't have this in my original like outline to you, but I thought about it after. Popcorn. Disney's loaded with tons of snacks. Popcorn is one of the least expensive ones, and you can get it in a refillable popcorn tub. And I'm not talking one of the souvenir ones. Those are cool, don't get me wrong. But I'm just talking the basic plastic ones that have just the Disney characters on them. You get a refillable one. I wouldn't say it's like $15 or $17, something like that. And then you can refill that literally forever. Not just your trip, but you can bring it back with you to Disney and get it refilled for like $4 a refill. And so you can avoid having to pay a ton of money on other snacks. I mean, cupcakes are $7 or $8 a piece. Churros are like $5 or $6 a piece, right? This popcorn is enough for everybody. Everybody gets a share, right? Yeah. You get their souvenir. That's a great cost saver right now, and it fills you up in between meals as well. I wish I could take credit for that one. My podcast partner, Matt's the one who thought of that one. And the other one is don't rent a car. Don't rent a car. We already talked about this. $bucks a day. B, if you're on property, paying for parking, so that's fine. But $60 a day, you don't need a car. You got Disney Transport. Instead, use Mears Connect. That is one of the partners that I use to get clients to and from Walt Disney World. Mears Connect, driven by Sunshine. $18 each way per person. So family of 4, you're talking $72 $72 each way, $144 round trip in total. They pick you up, they drop you off and back. So use Mears Connect. Uber is an option. I don't mind Uber. The problem with Uber is you're kind of at the will of somebody picking you up. Like I always worry about that. But Mears Connect's a fantastic option. So those would be my 5.
Okay. All right. Great tips. What about do's and don'ts? You've mentioned a little bit of that already, but you have sort of anything to add there?
Yeah, I'm going to do a do and don't flip-flop here for a second.
Okay.
If you're on property, do arrive for early park admission. Don't skip it. Get there. If the park opens at 9, you are an on-site guest and you have the right to get there by 8:30. Get there at 8. Get through admission and wait, and then they're going to scan your magic band or scan your pass or scan your phone, right? And they're going to let you into a particular area of the park. You can usually knock out 2 or 3 attractions in that half an hour before off-site guests get in there. It depends on which park you're in and which, like if you're going to Hollywood Studios and you go to Rise of the Resistance, you're only going to get that one. It's a long ride. But if you're at Magic Kingdom, you could probably knock out a couple of Seven Dwarfs you could probably knock out. Space Mountain you could probably knock out before anybody else. So early park admission. Don't skip midday break. We talked about that earlier. Do book early. Don't wait to book your trip. Book it. The ideal booking in my mind is 6 to 9 months out. Yes, sometimes you actually can book as much, I want to say up to like 499 days out or 399 days out. I can't remember exactly what the exact number is, which is fantastic. It only costs you $200. It's a $200 non-refundable deposit. So, I'm sorry, refundable deposit, non-refundable after 30 days. So like you can book it and decide to cancel later on and you're good. So like $200 down gets you booked, get your tickets booked, and then the rest is due at 30 days out. So why not? I mean, it's only $200. Get it on the books. That way your preferred room and room category and all that stuff are locked in. The thing I'll say about this is this. People are always like, well, what if it goes on a better sale or what if it's a better price? As a travel planner, when we book it for you, that is one of our jobs. We are monitoring for promos for you. If it goes at a better price, I will go and automatically apply that better price for you. But here's the kicker, and people don't think about this part of it. It could go up. Like you're looking at the price right now, Disney will not tell you when they're going to change their prices. They just will change them. And when they go up, they go up. So like book it at the price you have and don't wait. The same is true as if you go on a Disney trip. They have what's called a bounce back or go back or keep the magic going, keep the magic alive promotion. If you book your next trip within 7 days of checking out of your current trip, you can get up to 35% off. Again, Travel Planner can help you with that. So like all really good reasons. Just get it on the books. You can always cancel later, right? So don't skip over the preferred rooms. Yes, they cost a little bit more, not a lot. But I'm telling you, if you got a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old toddler after a day in the park who is zonked on the bus ride back and you got to carry that thing, carry him, that extra 10 minutes of walking matters a lot. And you're going to be wishing you paid that extra $20 or $15 a night or whatever for that preferred room, which is right there. So don't skip over the preferred rooms. They're worth it. Big one, and especially being the hotel lady, I think you'll appreciate this. Do enjoy your resort. You have pools, you have food courts, you have spas, you have theming, you have salons, you have special events. I mean, most of the resorts host a movie at the pool or movie on the courtyard every night. This is the second don't to that, or third don't just think of the resort as a place to lay your head. Don't. It's not just a place if you think of it like that, and Disney is not just the parks. Disney is a vacation. Take some time to enjoy. That is one of the biggest rookie mistakes I made, and I see a lot of people make, and I try to impress that upon them. Don't just think of it as just the parks. There's so much more to a Disney vacation. So those are my do's and don'ts.
All right. Yeah, for sure. I, of course, totally agree. I think the hotels are really underestimated. There is a lot of thought and planning and detail that goes into each and every hotel, and they're gorgeous. So yeah,
Absolutely.
spend some time there. Okay, well, what do you look for in the features of your hotel, whether it's on property, off property? What are you recommending?
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of took this as, you got a lot of perks on property, which is why I'm an on-property snob. We talked about early park admission, complimentary transportation. How are you going to get to and from? Again, one of the benefits of using a travel planner is we think through all that. You think of it as the hotel and the park, but how are you going to get where you're going? So again, on-site complimentary transportation is huge. Again, free on-site parking. If I'm thinking off-property, one of the things I am looking at is it's not just the cost of the hotel, but what are the resort fees? Because there are usually resort fees involved. I know when I went out to Hollywood, we didn't stay. This was actually in Hollywood. We stayed at Lowe's Hollywood Hotel. Beautiful hotel. Resort fees were like $75 a night. Well, what did I get for $75 a night? I got 2 bottles of water. I got free Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi, and I got access to the pool, which is what paid for that, which was crazy to me. I was paying X amount per night for the room, and then something else. So that's a thing. Again, I talked about the Disney bubble. being on property, the meal plan, again, if you want the meal plan, you can only do that if you're on property. Again, my podcast partner says time is money when you're at Disney. Being close to the magic is super important. Other things to look for too, like if you're, if money isn't as much of an object, I know we talked a lot about being budget friendly, but again, if you want to be close to Magic Kingdom to see the fireworks or see the show or whatever, Contemporary, Grand Floridian, Contemporary is walking distance, for crying out loud, to the Magic Kingdom. So, like, what's your proximity? The other thing I think is important, and I had this a little bit later, but I'll mention it now, which is like they're always refurbishing their resorts. They're always making them better. So, like, what is the latest and greatest? Like, all the All-Stars is a great example. They all had carpeting in their rooms up until about 3 years ago. They've all been refurbed, and they all got hardwood, well, like hard faux floor, but it's no longer carpeting. You don't get the mildew, you don't get the smell of that. It's all fresh. You know it's clean. I think that's another big thing is staying on property, whether you're at a value resort or a deluxe resort or anything in between. You're getting Disney clean. You're not dealing with like Red Roof quality levels, right? You're dealing with good quality stuff. Sorry, Red Roof, nothing against you, but that's what you're known for, right? You're a baseline, whatever. So that's what I would say. What are the perks, and what are you getting when you're there?
For sure. Do you have any experiences that you'd like to share from any of your trips?
Well, I will say, again, my first foray into Disney was when my partner, Nate, my boyfriend at the time, now partner, fiance, hopefully one of these days, husband, once we decide to pull the trigger on it, took me to Disney in 2010. I was a big Disney fan. I had never been to Disney parks. He took me there. And we made every rookie mistake possible. We didn't plan ahead. We didn't research necessarily. We just all the things that you think about that maybe you don't think about that I'm there to think about now for you. I made those mistakes, so I know what to avoid. I do have a fun story to share, and it is the two fun stories. So we went. This was 2010 August, my birthday, and I mean it's hot as blazes in August in Orlando. If you've ever been, I mean it gets the highs of 100 in some cases, depending on when you go. So we only were there we had three park days, 3-day park hoppers. Our last night there was Hollywood Studios, the old type of Hollywood Studios before it was built to what it is now. But for those of you who've been to Walt Disney World, you know the show Fantasmic, right? And it had rained a couple of times. We actually have this running joke, and you're probably seeing the picture of Nate and I in our rain ponchos. Every time we've ever been to Walt Disney World, when it rains, we're in our rain ponchos. We take a picture, we take a selfie of ourselves because of that one picture you're looking at there, because we always get caught in the rain, because that's reality. You're going to get rained on. It's going to happen. But I tell this Fantasmic story because it's our last night there. It's hot as blazes. It's been raining off and on. We got our ponchos on. We got our ponchos off. The humidity level is just absolutely obnoxious. We're told you got to go see this show, Fantasmic, best show on property, right? Neither of us had been there. So we get in line about 90 minutes before, because that's what we were told, get in line, and we're waiting and waiting. And the show's supposed to start. This is the early show. This is the middle of summer. This was like the 8 o'clock show. Show's supposed to start at 8 o'clock. It's like 7:30, and they hadn't opened the gates yet. And they finally get on the overhead, and they said, ladies and gentlemen, the 8 o'clock show has been canceled because the dragon is not working. We're going to try again for the 9:30 show. You're welcome to wait in line or, go about your day. Now, mind you, this is our last night there. We had already committed to an hour and a half in line, right? And I love Sorcerer Mickey. He's one of my favorites. So we said, all right, why not? Let's wait it out. And mind you, it keeps raining, and then it's hot, it's steaming, it's hot. So 9 o'clock rolls around. They still had not let us in for the 9:30 show. And sure enough, ladies and gentlemen, Fantasmic has been canceled for the night. We apologize for the inconvenience. So we had wasted basically 3 hours waiting for the show that we never got to see. It wasn't until 2 years later when we went back that we made it a point to go to that darn show, right? So I guess my thing is trips will never go 100% right. And you got to be flexible. And again, a travel planner is going to help you plan what's right. And here's what I always tell people is this. When you're planning your trip, everybody in your party pick the three most important things that you want to get out of every day. What are they? And then put them together and then we'll figure out. A lot of times there's overlap. Do those things. That way there's no disappointment. And then everything else is extra. It's extra.
Yeah. Then you're not
Yeah.
disappointed too. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Feel accomplished.
Yep.
All right. Anything else as far as planning? We talked about how far in advance you can do it, as little as 200 down. Any other planning advice, tips?
Yeah. So, I think in your questions, your pre-questions, one of the things you had was, for families that want to return to Disney, what are some key factors they should keep in mind? I think this is a good place for that. And really, three kind of takeaway principles here. If this is going to be a yearly thing or an every other year thing or once every 3 years thing, whatever for you, three things to think about here. Number one, you will experience change. You will never get your first experience again. Your first experience is your first experience. Every time's going to be different. So when you're planning which hotel you're going to be at, it's this balance of nostalgia versus wanting to have something new. Both I always I tell clients this every day. There's no wrong way to Disney. There's no wrong way to do it. Disney is this thing that you can grab hold of. So don't be afraid of change. Number one. Number two, your kids will change. Embrace this, grow with it, realize that the memories you had of them when they were 4 and 5 are not going to be the memories you have of them when they're 9 and 10, right? And every one of those is going to be different. One of my favorite memories is going with my nephew Blake and my niece Lily at the time. And, Blake was 5, but he rode Big Thunder Mountain. And he rode it like 3 times. And he loved it. He absolutely loved it, right? And so now he's riding bigger roller coasters and he loves them, right? So like those things, when you get to experience rites of passage, right? Those are important.
Yes.
And then finally, number 3, you will change. You will change. You might be okay with value resorts when you first go, right? But as you get older, maybe it's not so much about the theming. Maybe it's more about the luxury. It's more about the downtime. It's more about the experience, right? That's okay. And the vice versa is true as well. Sometimes a Disney trip is luxurious and beautiful. Other times it's a quick trip, a quick hit, right? Don't be afraid to embrace that. So, I think that's where I come in as a planner is I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. I'm going to give you my advice and you get to say, yes, I want that. No, I don't want that. The one thing I didn't talk about on here, I do want to mention, don't skimp on the travel insurance. Get the travel insurance. Ask anybody who was caught in the whole hurricane situation this season. Having that travel insurance saves your butt. Hurricanes, natural weathers, things like that are covered. Sickness, illness that prevents you from going, hospital stays, deaths in the family, job losses, all depending on what policy you get covered. And again, that is something I can help you with. We use the service I use is through AIG Travel Guard, number 1 travel insurance provider in the world. I cannot tell you how important getting that travel insurance is. So yeah.
Oh yeah, no fun looking for urgent care while you're on your big Disney trip.
That's the other thing. It's not just about what happened before. It's also during too. Like you get sick and Disney cruise or any cruise, you get evacuated off the ship and you need to go. So, I mean, all that stuff covered. Yeah, 100%.
You don't want to worry about how to pay for it. Just
exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here, Casey. Do you have any final thoughts to take us out?
Just one kind of hidden gem I just want to mention that I didn't mention when I was talking the hotels earlier because you had, you had asked kind of like, hey, are there any upcoming hotels or changes? One that actually just got done, Fort Wilderness Cabins. If you get an opportunity to stay at Fort Wilderness Cabins, I highly recommend it, especially if you've got a party of 5 or 6 people. These cabins are recently redone. They're over in the Magic Kingdom area. You get water taxi access to Magic Kingdom with continuing access to Epcot via monorail. They're all recently done. It's a DVC resort now, but you can still stay. The rooms have a queen-size bed plus 2 bunk beds, and then out in the living room, you got a queen-size pull-out. Full living area with fireplace. You've got fridge, stove, sink, full kitchen, full dining room, picnic table outside. I mean, you get a whole area. and it's a moderate resort, which means it's not as costly as like a deluxe villa or suite. So, hidden gem, highly recommend it. It's one of my favorites, especially if you're looking for a different kind of vibe than a basic like hotel vibe. It's more of a rustic log. They're not even log cabins anymore. They redid them, but they're beautiful resorts, and I highly recommend them. But yeah, other than that, final thoughts. I would love to help you and your family plan your trip. And Stacy, I really do appreciate you having me on. But you can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/magical Casey, or just search for Magical Memories by Casey. You can visit me at CaseyWooley.com. That's CaseyWooley.com. I'm sure Stacy's had it up on the show, which is fantastic. Again, free to you, but you get my years of experience, and I would love to help you plan. I'm authorized. Our agency's authorized. We're an earmarked agency, and you pay nothing extra for my services. So if you liked what I had to say, I would love to help you plan.
Awesome. Thank you, Casey. Yeah, I'm excited now. I'm actually going to check out Fort Wilderness, the new cabins there in January. So
They're
I know
awesome.
that's a great resort. So much to do there, especially that's not, theme park related. They've got the
Hoop-de
horses.
Doo Review. It's one of my
Yes,
favorites.
yes.
Hoop-de Doo Review. Yeah, it's a great little
Yeah.
dinner show. It's actually the longest running dinner show, I believe, in North America, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's the right thing. Actually, yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. Yeah. And yeah, that was a good point too. I don't know. I'll just repeat it for emphasis, but the DVC rooms, they're like you mentioned, I think earlier, they call it the deluxe villas, but you don't have to be a DVC member to rent those
No,
rooms. If there's
no, you don't.
availability, they're open to.
You can actually check them out too if you're ever over in the boardwalk area. They got them everywhere, but the boardwalk area is nice because you're kind of walking through, eating your ice cream or whatever, and they can show you what the boardwalk DVC rooms look like, and they're just the little touches. They're absolutely gorgeous.
Awesome. Well,
Yep.
thank you so much. And yes, CaseyWooley.com right there. Magical Memories by Casey on the screen. Thank you for all your insights, all your experience, all your knowledge, sharing it with us. And please reach out if you are in the market for a Disney travel agent. As he said, it's free to use, free to use. Take advantage.
Thank you so much, Stacey, for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm Stacy, Disney Hotel Lady, and this has been our very first episode of our creator interviews. So thanks for watching.
Remember to check out DisneyHotelLady.com for the latest hotel reviews. Also, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and join the hotel discussion group on Facebook.com at Disney Hotel Lady. Stay tuned till next week to find out who our next creator interview will be with.